And we thank you for calling, and we've got what was it, a 6-minute section? Yeah, 6-minute section of film. We'll be back for a couple of minutes after that. So guys, let's roll that 6-minute section.
Time magazine did a whole thing on the New Age movement with, with crystals and, talking about all the different New Age phenomena that became very popular in the 80s and is still with us to this day. And Shirley MacLaine was on the front cover holding the crystals. And in that piece, they talked about, in the introduction of that piece at the beginning of the magazine, they talked about how we don't know where the term New Age came from or where it's going. Well, the Bible tells us, Jesus said in the last days there would be this false, this religious movement, which would be saying the time draws near, which would be predicting a new age, and which would have its basis in satanic or false miracles, which is what the New Age movement's all about. So we know where it's going.
In 1904, a man named Aleister Crowley channeled a spirit who inspired a series of writings known as the Book of the Law. According to the introduction of the work, the book was dictated in Cairo, Egypt, between noon and 1 p.m. on 3 successive days. The author, a demonic spirit, called himself Aiwass and claimed to be a messenger from the forces ruling this earth at present. This description is quite revealing, since Jesus referred to Satan as the prince or ruler of this world. Satan is also called the god of this world by the Apostle Paul. In this Book of the Law, Crowley set down the chief principle for what he called the new eon. He wrote, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt." This declaration is in contrast to the example of Christ in the Bible. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed, "Father, not as I will, but as thou wilt," in obedience to God. But in the Book of the Law, Crowley turns the tables and teaches men not as God wills, but rather, "Do what thou wilt." This promotion of self-will that so often leads to self-empowerment is perhaps the climax of man's desire to be his own God, to rule over himself rather than live in obedience to the God who created him. Jesus said, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it." Having thoroughly rejected the gospel of Jesus Christ, Aleister Crowley would earn the title of the wickedest man in the world by the London newspapers. The British media exposed his bizarre satanic rituals at the mysterious Abbey Thelema in Sicily. On one occasion, a man named Raoul Loveday died from drinking poisoned cat's blood at Crowley's command. Loveday's widow returned to London and exposed Crowley's wicked behavior to the world. When he was a child, Crowley's own mother referred to him as the Beast. According to Crowley researcher James W. Revac, he quickly identified with the title, and for the rest of his life, he viewed himself as the Beast of the Apocalypse, the enemy of Christianity. Like all New Age adherents, past and present, Crowley revered the serpent's lie from the Garden of Eden. He wrote, "This serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade know thyself and taught initiation." Through the 20th century, the influence of this black magician and professing Satanist upon popular culture has compelled some researchers to consider him the real father of the modern New Age movement.
Well, he's basically not only the father of modern Satanism and the most highly regarded Satanist of the last century, he is also the father of the modern New Age movement, which is extensive around the Western world today. I won't say he single-handedly ushered in the New Age movement, but he, more so than any other human being, was instrumental in the popularization of the New Age movement. Altered states of consciousness, trying to make altered states of consciousness scientific through whether it be hallucinogens and seeing reality different, and using the comparisons of a microscope and a looking into a different reality on a spiritual level, whether it was drugs, whether it was astrology, or the practice of ritual magic, whether it was sex magic, whether it was his ideas of world unity through magic and so forth. All these are very popular through the 1960s and after that in ushering in what today is called the New Age movement. But he was very, very powerful as far as, I mean, more so than anybody. Satanists will admit that Aleister Crowley was, you know, the Satanist of the 20th century. Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan, which was more notorious than Aleister Crowley's group, was simply pop Satanism to many serious Satanists.
Hail Satan!
Hail Satan!
Shem Farash!
Shem Farash!
Hail Satan!
Hail Satan!
And even Anton LaVey's group, I mean, Anton LaVey's library was chock full of Aleister Crowley's books. The co-founder of the Church of Satan with Anton LaVey, Kenneth Anger, was an avowed Satanist who was a follower of Aleister Crowley. And many of his works, Invocation to My Demon Brother, Lucifer Rising, and so forth, videos that he made in the late 60s extolling Satanism, were all about Aleister Crowley, unveiling a picture of Crowley and that's worshipped and so forth. In regard to Satanism.
Welcome back to Truth Seekers. And the Rolling Stones, I think, took part in that movie. They took part in a couple of movies with Kenneth Anger, who worked with Anton LaVey, the head of the Church of Satan. Satanists. Jay, any thoughts? We've got about 2 minutes or so, 3 minutes.
Well, I want to specifically speak on one issue for Ehrlich's mom, if she ever does happen to tune in, but even not her. But I wrote down a couple things here. You have feelings versus faith, or self versus Christ. The one thing they all have in common, these occultist practitioners, it deals with the feelings, emotions, sights, sensors, sounds, and it deals with self. You'll hear that word self in every aspect of their teachings. We're bringing you deny self, and Christ has paid the price, Mike.
Do you know, though, that I was into Eastern religion, and of course they teach you can get rid of the ego, the self, by meditating, thinking on a word over and over, and then you go into a void of thinking on nothing, and you've lost yourself, and eventually you reincarnate to become God. And I didn't realize back then, becoming God, which is the goal, is the biggest ego trip that there possibly could be, because how much greater can any of us be than God? But of course, we didn't all create the universe. And so, you know, we can't tell the future, so it goes back to that.
But Mike, that's still self, yes, denying self.
Exactly. But I was tricked, and it's all deception. Any of us can be deceived. And so...
And tied in with that, remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, is the sensories, the feelings. That was a big red flag. So if it's going to touch your emotions, you better step back and take a look, because God says you are justified by faith. And faith is not seen nor heard. It's seeing the unseen. That's faith. And
it's on evidence. Faith is always based on evidence.
And it is based on evidence. But when a spirit comes to you and starts disturbing your feelings, you better be very careful.
Well, you know, there's going to be miracles. Jesus said that the false prophets in the end time, he said, be not deceived. There are many false Christs and false prophets, and they're going to show great signs and wonders. We don't know when this is going to come. But he said that's going to mislead many. And so you're going to really have to be solid and really take a look at the prophecies that prove that God is who he is, so you're not deceived and end up where you don't want to be.
In 2 Corinthians 5:8 says we walk by faith, not by sight.